Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Gnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneswari Vrisabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhupya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashattare Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Okay, so today we read the chapter 16, Lord Krishna in Indraprastha city. In the presence of the great sage Narada and all other associates of Lord Krishna, Uddhava considered the situation and then spoke as follows. My dear Lord, first of all, let me say that the great sage Narada Muni has requested you to go to Hastinapura to satisfy King Yudhishthira, your cousin, who is making arrangements to perform the great sacrifice known as Raja Suya. I think, therefore, that your lordship should immediately go there to help the king in this great adventure. However, although to accept the invitation offered by the sage Narada Muni as primary is quite appropriate, at the same time, my lord, it is your duty to give protection to the surrendered souls. Both purposes can be served if we understand the whole situation. Unless we are victorious over all the kings, no one can perform this Rajaswa sacrifice. In other words, it is to be understood that King Yudhishthira cannot perform this great sacrifice without gaining victory over the belligerent King Jarasandha. The Rajaswa sacrifice can only be performed by one who has gained victory over all directions. Therefore, to execute both purposes, we first of all have to kill Jarasandha. I think that if we can somehow or other gain victory over Jarasandha, then automatically all our purposes will be served. The imprisoned kings will be released, and with great pleasure we shall enjoy the spread of your transcendental fame at having saved these innocent kings from whom Jarasandha has imprisoned. But King Jarasandha is not an ordinary man. He has proved a stumbling block even to great warriors because his bodily strength is equal to the strength of 10,000 elephants. If there is anyone who can conquer this king, he is none other than Bhishma Sena, because he also possesses the strength of 10,000 elephants. The best thing would be for Bhishma Sena to fight alone with him. Then there would be no unnecessary killing of many soldiers. In fact, it will be very difficult to conquer Jarasandha when he stands with his Akshauhini divisions of soldiers. We may therefore adopt a policy more favorable to the situation. We know that King Jarasandha is very much devoted to the Brahmanas. He is very charitably disposed towards them. He never refuses any request from a Brahmana. I think, therefore, that Bhishmasena should approach Jarasandha in the dress of Brahmana, beg charity from him, and then personally engage in fighting him. And in order to assure Bhishmasena's victory, I think that your lordship should also accompany him. If the fighting takes place in your presence, I am sure Bhishmasena will emerge victorious, because simply by your presence everything impossible is made possible. Just as Lord Brahma creates this universe and Lord Shiva destroys it simply through your influence. Actually, you are creating and destroying the entire cosmic manifestation. Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are only superficially visible causes. Creation and destruction are actually being performed by the invisible time factor, which is your impersonal representation. Everything is under the control of this time factor. If your invisible time factor can perform such wonderful acts through Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, will not your personal presence help Bhishmasena to conquer Jarasandha? My dear Lord, when Jarasandha is killed, then the queens of all the imprisoned kings will be so joyful at their husbands being released by your mercy that they will all begin to sing your glories. They will be as pleased as the gopis were when they were relieved from the hands of Shankasura. All the great sages, the king of the elephants, Gajendra, the goddess of fortune, Sita, and even your father and mother, were all delivered by your causeless mercy. We also have been thus delivered, and we are always singing the transcendental glories of your activities. Therefore, I think that if the killing of Jarasandha is undertaken first, that will automatically solve many other problems. As for the Rajasuya sacrifice arranged in Hastinapura, it will be held either because of the pious activities of the imprisoned kings or the impious activities of Jarasandha. My lord, it appears that you are also personally to go to Hastinapura to perform this great sacrifice, so that demoniac kings like Jarasandha and Shishupala may be conquered, the pious imprisoned kings released, and at the same time the great Rajashuya sacrifice performed. Considering all these points, I think that your lordship should immediately proceed to Hastinapura. This advice from Uddavas was appreciated by all who were present in the assembly, and everyone considered that Lord Krishna going to Hastinapura would be beneficial from all points of view. The great sage Narada, the elderly personalities of the Yadu dynasty, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, all supported the statement of Uddhava. Lord Krishna then took permission from his father Vasudeva and grandfather Ugrasena, and immediately ordered his servants Daruka and Jaitra to arrange for travel to Hastinapura. When everything was prepared, Lord Krishna especially bid farewell to Lord Balaram and the king of the Yadus, Ugrasena, and after dispatching his queens along with their children and sending their necessary luggage ahead, he mounted his chariot, which bore the flag marked with the symbol of Garuda. Before starting the procession, Lord Krishna satisfied the great sage Narada by offering him different kinds of worshipful articles. Naradaji wanted to fall at the lotus feet of Krishna, but because the Lord was playing the part of a human being, he simply offered his respects within his mind, and fixing the transcendental form of the Lord within his heart, he left the assembled house by the airways. Usually the sage Narada never walks on the surface of the globe, but travels in outer space. After the departure of Narada, Lord Krishna addressed the messenger who had come from the imprisoned kings. He told him that they should not be worried. He would be soon arranged to kill the king of Magadha, Jarasandha. Thus he wished good fortune to all the imprisoned kings and the messengers. The messenger. After receiving this assurance from Lord Krishna, the messenger returned to the imprisoned kings and informed them of the happy news of the Lord's forthcoming visit. All the kings became joyful at the news and began to wait very anxiously for the Lord's arrival. The chariot of Lord Krishna began to proceed, accompanied by many other chariots, along with elephants, cavalry, infantry, and similar royal paraphernalia. Bugles, drums, trumpets, conch shells, horns, and cornets All began to produce a loud, auspicious sound, which vibrated in all directions. The 16,000 queens, headed by the goddess of fortune Rukmini Devi, the ideal wife of Lord Krishna, and accompanied by their respective sons, all followed behind Lord Krishna. They were dressed in costly garments, decorated with ornaments, and their bodies were smeared with sandalwood pulp and garlanded with fragrant flowers. Riding on palanquins, which were nicely decorated with silk flags and golden lace, they followed their exalted husband, Lord Krishna. The infantry soldiers carried shields, swords, and lances in their hands and acted as royal bodyguards to the queens. In the rear of the procession were the wives and children of all the other followers, and there were many society girls also following. Many beasts of burden, like bulls, buffaloes, mules, and asses, carried the camps, bedding, and carpets, and the women who were following were seated in the separate palanquins on the backs of the camels. This panoramic procession was accompanied by the shouts of the people and was full with display of the different colored flags, umbrellas, and whisks, and different varieties of weapons, dress, ornaments, helmets, and armaments. The procession, being reflected in the sunshine, appeared just like an ocean with high waves and sharks. In this way, the procession of Lord Krishna's party advanced towards Hastinapura, New Delhi, and gradually passed through the kingdoms of Anarta, Gujarat province, Savira, Saured, the great desert, Rajasthan, and then Kurukshetra. In between those kingdoms, there were many mountains, rivers, towns, villages, pasturing grounds, and mining fields. The procession passed through all of these places in its advance. On his way to Hastinapura, the Lord crossed two big rivers, the Drishvati and the Saraswati. Then he crossed the province of Panchala and the province of Matsya. In this way, ultimately, he arrived at Indraprastha. The audience of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is not very commonplace. Therefore, when King Yudhishthira heard that Lord Krishna had already arrived in his capital city, Hastinapura, he became so joyful that all his hair stood on end in great ecstasy. And he immediately came out of the city to properly receive him. He ordered the musical vibration of different instruments and songs, and the learned Brahmanas of the city began to chant the hymns of the Vedas very loudly. The Lord Krishna is known as Rishikesha, the master of the senses, and King Yudhishthira went forward to receive him exactly as the senses meet the consciousness of life. King Yudhishthira was elderly cousin of Krishna. Naturally, he had great affection for the Lord, and as soon as he saw him, his heart became filled with great love and affection. He had not seen the Lord for many days, and therefore he thought himself most fortunate to see him present before him. The king therefore began to embrace Lord Krishna again and again in great affection. The eternal form of Lord Krishna is the everlasting residence of the goddess of fortune. As soon as King Yudhishthira embraced him, he became free from all the contamination of material existence. He immediately felt transcendental bliss and he emerged in an ocean of happiness. There were tears in his eyes and his body shook due to ecstasy. He completely forgot that he was living in this material world. After this, Bhishmasena, the second brother of the Pandavas, smiled and embraced Lord Krishna, thinking of him as his own maternal cousin, and thus he was merged in great ecstasy. Bhishmasena also was so filled with ecstasy that for the time being he forgot his material existence. The Lord Sri Krishna himself embraced the other three Pandavas, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva. The eyes of all three brothers were inundated with tears, and Arjuna began to embrace Krishna again and again because they were intimate friends. The two younger Pandava brothers, after being embraced by Lord Krishna, fell down at his lotus feet to offer their respects. Lord Krishna thereafter offered his obeisances to the Brahmanas present there, as well as to the elderly members of the Kuru dynasty like Bhishma, Drona, and Dhritarashtra. There were many kings of different provinces, such as Kuru, Srinjaya, and Kekaya, and Lord Krishna duly reciprocated greetings and respects with them. The professional reciters like the Sutas, Magadas, and Vandinas, accompanied by the Brahmanas, began to offer their respectful prayers to the Lord. Artists and musicians like the Gandharvas, as well as the royal jokers, began to play their drums, conch shells, kettle drums, veenas, mridangas, and bugles, and exhibited their dancing art in order to please the Lord. Thus, the all famous Supreme Person of Godhead, Lord Krishna, entered the great city of Hastinapura, which was opulent in every respect. While Lord Krishna was entering the city, everyone was talking among themselves about the glories of the Lord, praising his transcendental name, quality, form, etc. The roads, streets, and lanes of Hastinapura were all sprinkled with fragrant water through the trunks of intoxicated elephants. In different places of the city, there were colorful festoons and flags decorating the houses and streets. At important road crossings, there were gates with golden decorations, and at the two sides of the gates, there were golden water jugs. These beautiful decorations glorified the opulence of the city. Participating in this great ceremony, all the citizens of the city gathered here and there, dressed in colorful new clothing, decorated with ornaments, flower garlands, and fragrant scents. Each and every house was illuminated by hundreds and thousands of lamps placed in different corners of the cornices, walls, columns, bases, and architraves. And from far away, the rays of the lamps resembled the festival of Deepavali, a particular festival observed on the New Year's Day on the Hindu calendar. Within the walls of the houses, fragrant incenses was burning, and smoke rose through the windows, making the entire atmosphere very pleasing. On the top of every house, flags were flapping, and the gold water pots kept on the roofs shone very brilliantly. Lord Krishna thus entered the city of the Pandavas, enjoyed the beautiful atmosphere, and slowly proceeded ahead. When the young girls in every house heard that Lord Krishna, the only object worth seeing, was passing on the road, they became very anxious to see this all-famous personality. Their hair loosened, and their tightened saris became slack due to their hastily rushing to see him. They gave up their household engagements, and those who were lying in bed with their husbands immediately left them and came directly down onto the street to see Lord Krishna. The procession of elephants, horses, chariots, and infantry was very crowded. Some, being unable to see properly in the crowd, got up to the roofs of the houses. They were pleased to see Lord Sri Krishna passing with thousands of queens. They began to shower flowers on the procession, and they embraced Lord Krishna within their minds and gave him a hearty reception. When they saw him in the midst of his many queens, like the full moon situated amidst many luminaries, they began to talk among themselves. One girl said to another, "My dear friend, it is very difficult to guess what kind of pious activities these queens might have performed, for they are always enjoying the smiling face and loving glances of Krishna." While Lord Krishna was thus passing on the road, at intervals some of the opulent citizens, who were all rich, respectable, and freed from all sinful activities, presented auspicious articles to the Lord, just to offer him a reception to the city. Thus they worshipped him as humble servitors. When Lord Krishna entered the palace, all the ladies there became overwhelmed with affection just upon seeing him. They immediately received Lord Krishna with glittering eyes expressing their love and affection for him, and Lord Krishna smiled and accepted their feelings and gestures of reception. When Kunti, the mother of the Pandavas, saw her nephew, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, she became overpowered with love and affection. She at once got up from her bedstead and appeared before him with her daughter-in-law, Draupadi, and in maternal love and affection she embraced him. As he brought Krishna within the palace, King Yudhishthira became so confused in his jubilation that he practically forgot what he was to do at the time in order to receive Krishna and worship him properly. Lord Krishna delightfully offered his respects and obeisances to Kunti and other elderly ladies of the palace. His younger sister, Shubhadra, was also standing there with Draupadi, and both offered their respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord. At the indication of her mother-in-law, Draupadi brought clothing, ornaments, and garlands, and with this paraphernalia they received the queens Rukmini, Satyabhama, Bhadra, Jambavati, Kalindi, Mitravinda, Lakshmana, and the devoted Satya. These principal queens of Lord Krishna were first received, and then the remaining queens also offered their proper reception. King Yudhishthira arranged for Krishna's rest and saw all that and saw that all who came along with him, namely his queens, his soldiers, his ministers, and his secretaries, were comfortably situated. He had arranged that they would experience a new feature of reception every day while staying as guests of the Pandavas. It was during this time that Lord Sri Krishna, with the help of Arjuna, for the satisfaction of the fire god Agni, allowed Agni to devour the Kandava forest. During the forest fire, Krishna saved the demon Mayasura, who was hiding in the forest. Upon being saved, Mayasura felt obliged to the Pandavas and Lord Krishna, and he constructed a wonderful assembled house within the city of Hastinapura. In this way, Lord Krishna, in order to please King Yudhishthira, remained in the city of Hastinapura for several months. During his stay, he enjoyed strolling here and there. He used to drive on chariots along with Arjuna, and many warriors and soldiers used to follow them. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the second volume, 16th chapter of Krishna, Lord Krishna in Indraprastha Shiti. Okay, next one is again long chapter, so let's read that one tomorrow when it's Ekadashi. Now let's read six Shastakam prayers. Cheto darpanamarjanam bhavamahadavagni nirvapanam Shreyah kairava chandrika vitaranam ityavadu jivanam Anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnamritasvadanam Sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. Ribo.
Nam Nam Akari Pahutani cha Sarvas Shaktis Tatrarpitani Yamitaha Smaranena Nakalaha Etat Shitava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durtaivam Itrisham Yajani Namuragaha.
Ribo. Yes, that's very good. Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sada Hari.
Natanam Najanam Nas. Okay, when Suntarim Kavitam Vajakat Isha Karnaye Mama Chanmani Chanmanishware Pavatat Bhaktir Ahaituki Tvaji.
Ribo. Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Budau Kripa Tavapada Pankaja Stita Duli Sadarsam Vichintaya.
Nayanam Galat Ashruta Raja Vadanam Gat Gada. Okay, I have Ruttaya gira pulakar nichitam vapukada tavanama grahane pavishyati.
युगायितं निमेषेन चक्षुषा प्राविर्ष्यायितं शून्यायितं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्दा विरहेण मे
Ashlishyavapada ratam pinastumam adarshanan marma hatam karotu va yata tata va vidattatu lampato matrana natas tusaeva naparaha.
Rivo. Translation. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds of, and millions of names, like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them.
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, bird after bird.
O son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.
O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body on end at the recitation of your name?
O Govinda, feeling your separation, some considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally.
Ribol, Sri Siksastakam ki jai, Vinastakam
Jai,
ki jai. Bhaktisiddhanta
Jai,
Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Jagat Guru
Jai,
Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur
Jai,
ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for joining reading session.